All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about brush settings and all the things you can do with brushes. And I'm going to try to move this out of the way. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make another file. And so just to remind people, I noticed in the last class that a lot of people were not doing the right size file. So we want to be on inches, and we want to be at, what is our width? 16. So we're doing double the width of an 8 by 10. And then we want to have a 10-inch height. We're going to leave this on the horizontal because if we flip it, these numbers will flip. We're going to call this self-portrait RD1. So each rough draft will have a number. So there's 3 of them that you're doing. So there'll be RD1, RD2, and RD3. We're going to leave it at, we'll put it on RGB. It doesn't really matter. And at this point, we're going to have it on transparent. And we want to have it at 300 pixels per inch, so it's large. So we'll say create. And there's our file. And we can note here that we're at 16 inches because we dragged this down to our 0 point. And there's our 16-inch point. We're going to divide it with a guide at the 8-inch marker. This is where our image will go on the right side. Our work from, our portrait and colors and palettes and all those things will go on the left side. I'm going to reset my window just so I can make sure I have everything available to me. So there it is. I'm going to move it over just a little. I like to drag off, as you all know, my toolbar and shorten it up. And over here, I have a bunch of other things that are kind of out of sight, but there's my color swatches. Here's my layers palette. I'm going to drag that out just for the sake of having it out. And then I'm going to open up another window. I'm going to open up the brushes window. So when I open up the brushes window, notice that I get 2 windows. I get my brushes and I get my brush settings. Okay. So when I go and I want to find a brush, this is where I would go. I would go to my brushes and I can make brush envelopes. So like if I go over here, you'll notice that there's the new brush preset. There's also a couple of other things. This is get more brushes, new brush group. So let's say you decided that you were going to make some brushes. You can put them into a group by highlighting them or creating the group first and then putting the brushes into the group, right? So it's just like a folder, just like everything else. So if I want to do a new brush preset, for example, I would go ahead and start working on that and build something, and then I could come over here and do that. I'm not going to do that right this minute. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the settings. So let me cancel out of here. So if if I'm working on a brush, like let's say this brush right here. So this is the 320, and you'll note that there's a bunch of different things you can do, and it basically over here is telling me what this set is all about. So I can see that I have shape dynamics. And if I want to change those dynamics, I can kind of see how it changes. So I can change that around. If I click down here, I should, it just shows me up above kind of where I'm at. So let me go back here. So if I want to move this, I can move this down or not. Hang on. Oh, now it's not going to let me. Oh. Wait a second. I know why. Cancel. Okay. So there was another dialog box that had popped up that I didn't want on there. All right. So I can move this down. I can change this. There's a bunch of different things here that have, just like in your blenders, like they have some things. So like we can change the jitter. So see how, look at the bottom of it. See how the jitter is changing on it, right? I can, change the scatter. See that? So I can go in and alter the count of the scatter. Right? All of that. I could play with the texture, the brightness of it. See that? All of those things. And then, and it continues like, the buildup, how much ink is on it or not. So if I go back up here, I can look at the load and I can see that the load's at 12%, and I can change that load when I actually use it. This is a mix brush. We're going to talk about that. That's actually a different brush we're going to use. The flow, we can change how it flows. Like if it's thick or thin paint, like if it's real wet, it'll be at 100%. If it's more like globby and fat, we can pull it back. So there's lots of different bits in here. All of them are a lot of fun. But one of the things that I want to do is like if we look at this brush and let's make it really big. So if I go Option, Control Option, and make this really big, that's what the shape of this brush looks like, right? So if I just click it once, you can kind of see there what's happening with it, right? So see how it's kind of going back and forth over itself? Because it's the way the brush is made. So if I bring this one over the top, you'll notice that it's kind of transparent, right? So I only have, the load is only at 19%. So if I drag the load way up, it should get really a lot darker. See that? It gets a lot darker because it's got more paint on it. Okay, let's zoom back out of here. All right, so if I want to kind of play with this more, I'm going to grab a couple of different colors here. And let me just get like a yellowish color. Okay, and then I'm going to make this other color kind of a green. All right, and so if I'm on this, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And if I, kind of put my yellow down, and now I'm going to go and grab my green color. Actually, let me just hit escape out of there. Hang on, stuff's going on my other screen. So I'm going to just hit my X key, and then I flip my foreground background. And if I come back over it, I can kind of see through it a little bit. But I have this other brush too. And that's my mixer brush, and that's the one I've been on. So if I go back to my regular brush, watch what happens. So let me go back up to the one I was just on. See how much darker it is? And now if I go to my yellow and I go over the top, it should not be actually, let me just look here. Oh, it's not on the same brush. There we go. Now let me try. Keeps getting off to a different brush, but I will just use this brush. It shouldn't, it should basically not blend as well. So let me just get rid of all of this stuff that I have on here right now. And let me just go to a regular brush, a general brush, because that'll be more helpful. So I'll just go to this one. All right, let's make that a little bit bigger. So there's my yellow. Then I'm going to flip. I'm going to go to my green. There's my green. Okay. Now, if I go down and if I go over the top of the yellow with the green, it completely obliterates it. So now, if I go to my mixing brush, my mixer brush down here, and I go back to this color, I should be on my mixer brush. See what it does? Let me make that smaller so it's the same size again. See how I can kind of see through the yellow? And I can change the load again, and so on. I can increase the wetness on that brush. See how much it's changed that brush? If I go to this one, and let's go back to my yellow. See what it's doing with my mixer? See that? So it acts more like oil paint. So it's literally like altering the color. So if I go, let's change this bottom color to blue. Okay. See it pulling in some of the green and the yellow? So completely different sort of feel when you're using the mixer brush than when you're using the, without that brush. So that's in your toolbar over here under your brushes. So it's the bottom one. You have color replacement. There's a pencil tool. Pencil tool is, again, very different than, it's like a pencil, right? There's also these brushes, and we aren't going to talk too much about them yet. These are the history and the art history brush. So the history brush, like so, I painted over the top of this one, and if I start to go back, notice there's nothing under it. So it literally is kind of like an eraser. So if I had like an image under here or something, it would actually paint it, right? The history brush is a whole different thing. So the history brush will take an image, and depending on what I do here, see all these different, the up at the top where I have my opacity, and then I have this like tight, short, tight, medium, tight, long, loose, medium, loose, long, dab, curl, and so on. So what this is going to do, if I take dab, for example, and I come over here, it's just going to dab. It literally, if there were a picture under here, a photo, and I was on another layer, it should, and it's not doing it. I would need to have a photograph under here. It literally makes paint strokes out of the color of the photograph. So that's kind of another really interesting kind of history piece that you can do. I don't want it to be white though. So that's all of that. Let me get the eraser tool out and just erase what I have really fast. And then I'm going to show you some other things. So let's say you decide you want to make your own brush, right? So what you would do to make your own brush is, first of all, you would need to make like a shape. So like we could take like this lasso tool here, and we could kind of make a crazy shape, and then we could fill it. So we'll say edit and fill. And we'll just fill it with black for now. Okay, and then let's get off of that one and make another kind of crazy one, and we'll fill that. And we'll make another kind of little circle. Edit, fill. All right, and then let's just grab all those, see if we can grab them all, and maybe. It's not gonna let me see if I go select all, Command A. Okay, so now I have them all. If I go Command C, Command V, I should get another set. Oh, I still have some other junk in there. Let me just flip that around. So I'm just trying to make something kind of interesting looking. Okay, and I have to accept that move. And then let me erase this because I don't want that in there. So I'm just going to erase that, maybe. Oh, I've got to be on a different layer. Make sure whatever was over there is erased. And then I think what I want to do is I want to drop the opacity a little bit on some of these. So on the second layer, I'm going to drop the opacity of that layer. So see what I'm doing there? And then on this layer, that's those guys. I can maybe drop the opacity a little bit on that. Not so much. There we go. That's 100. That's not much there. Okay, so now I have all of them. Okay, so that's my shapes. Fine. So now I'm going to take all of these. So I'm going to grab all my layers. And now I have everything. Okay, I have all my layers. I've collected them all. And it's showing me, because I'm on my selection tool, that all my stuff is selected. So now I'm going to go to, I always have to look for this because I always forget where it is. Define brush preset right there. You see that? So it's under edit, almost to the bottom. And when I click on that, I get this. Now, it's brush number 588, and I will just call this Shay's brush. All right, so I named it after Shay, and I'll say okay. So now I can come over here and I can see I have this brush. And if I want to play with this brush and more, I can mess with the jitter. I can do the different scatters. See that? What I did there? And so on. And so I can, you know, play with the count, drop it down, increase it, the count jitter. So it's sort of like more random. I could go in and find textures for it. I could make it a wet brush. So if I click on this, then the edges are kind of wet looking. Okay, and so anyway, so now after I do all that, hopefully, I should, if I make a new layer, I should be able to grab that brush in my brushes palette. So if I go to my brushes palette, and I go to brushes, and there at the bottom, there's my Shay brush, and I can paint. And see how it's kind of wet and see-through? So now if I want to mix it, I will use my mixer brush. Hopefully it stays on it, if there's any love at all in the world. Yeah, see it? So literally now, because I made it a wet brush, it's mixing the two colors of the foreground and the background color. So I'm literally able to just blend right over the top. If I flip it, I'm going to get more of the blue. So like if I'm doing skin, I don't want this to be only web colors. There we go. And so let me just pick a skin tone here, ish. That's right. And then let me go to the background color. A little too yellow. All right, so now if I paint, I'm getting like I don't know how well you can see it, but so let's make this a little redder so it really makes a difference. I should start to see that pink in there. But this is mixing even the stuff that I have laid down underneath, right? So I can mix those as well. So there's just a lot that you can do with brushes. Now, I'm just using my trackpad right now. So, I mean, I could come back over this if I had, if I have, you know, a different type of brush, I can change, you know, the tip shape, some of these. I mean, I'm just going into the actual brushes that I have right now in my computer. But you can see that every one of these, as I move around, is going to have different kinds of dynamics and different, you know, ability. See, look how transparent this particular brush is, right? So if I go up here, I can see why. Because it's got a 63% of it's wet, and then it has this load, and this is a custom. So if I wanted to look more dry, let me go over here. Or if I wanted to look really wet, it would, you know, look like that. If I get, and that's on my mixer brush. So I'm still on my mixer brush. So you always can tell when you're on your mixer brush because it's got the little brush, the little droplet above the brush. So that's an important thing to know. So if I'm off my mixer brush, and I go here and look at how different that brush looks. That's, you know, crazy how much you can change something you know, at will. All right. So I think at this point, I'm going to stop this little video, and hopefully that's a nice little primer on what you can do with brushes and how you can save them. So if I go back into my brush settings, I go to the bottom, there it shows me my brush. And then, you know, I could open up a folder and I could drag those brushes in. So I could have them saved for myself, depending on what size they are. Right? So, and I mean, really quickly, you can do a lot. And I encourage you to look at all the brushes that you have available. I mean, this is under my general brushes because that's, or no, it's in my gouache brushes. That's where I put it. But, oh no, wait, did I put it there or did I put it? Yeah, it's in the gouache brushes. So if you create, like, if you go over here and you make a new brush group, you just name it, and we'll just say this is a test group. And now at the bottom, you know, I can put things in here. I can drag them in. So it's really great to build all kinds of things. But what I encourage you to do is to look at all the brushes that are available to you in all the other groups that you have. Right? So, you know, we can look at, I don't know what these are. These are some brushes that I made, I think. But, you know, if we look at special effects brushes, for example, and we look at this, and then we come back over here with that highlighted, we can see how he built that brush. And that teaches you how to build your own brushes. And when you do all those settings and then you hit save, you know, then you can create that really cool looking brush. All right.